Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and we are back for episode 88. This is a recap of the AKA Warrior Cup. We were off for a week because I was at the Warrior Cup doing coverage there, broadcasting, commentating, and had so much fun. As you guys that have been following me know that I kind of through the pandemic and getting some opportunities with Virtual Fight Tour and then Pro Point, and then, of course, commentating at the Battle of Atlanta and the U.S. Open, I kind of fell in love with commentating, and it was this like secret passion that I discovered, and I intend to keep doing it. So plans are in place right now for me to be commentating at the Compete Nationals as well, and really any of these big sport karate tournaments where there's going to be this broadcast style coverage for the nighttime finals instead of just a regular social media live stream, but actually taking it to the next level in terms of production quality. I'm going to do everything I can to be there and be behind the mic because I love it. Above all else, I love doing it. I enjoy it. I mean, you guys know from watching the podcast that I love talking shop and sharing sport karate with as many people as possible. And so the opportunity to do that at a night show and watch so many talented athletes do their thing, do what they love, that's a blessing to me. So I was at AK Warrior Cup, came in late on Friday, so didn't get to see the competition Friday night, but then was there all day Saturday and watched all the eliminations, and then, of course, was commentating during the nighttime show. And so the show today, our topic of the day, is going to be a top 10 countdown of my 10 favorite performances from the AKA Warrior Cup. But before we get there, as those of you that have been tuning in for season 3 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast know, we've got to get through our segments, right? So first is This Week in Sport Karate, because there is a good bit of news that we got to get through. First and foremost, we got a happy birthday shout out. Today is Mark Plocker's birthday, somebody that does a ton for the sport karate community. So happy birthday shout out to Mark Plocker, Dr. Plocker. Hope that you have had an amazing day and hope you're tuning in here tonight. So there's our birthday shout out. As far as other news, so much has happened that I got to bring out my handy dandy notepad here to go over some of it. So some of the biggest news, this actually came out before AKA Warrior Cup, but since we didn't have a show the week of Warrior Cup, we didn't get to get this out there yet. And it's that the Quebec Open, one of the largest karate tournaments in North America, let alone Canada, is not going to be coming back until 2023. So they've got a lot of really strict COVID restrictions right now in Canada. They didn't think they were going to be able to get it turned around in time with all the restrictions in April to be able to make that event happen. It's an understandable but unfortunate decision. So Quebec Open will not be back until 2023, but that's kind of old news. We'll get to some of the more new news in the sport karate community. We've got kind of an exodus from Team KTOC going on. Several players announcing that they have stepped away from the team, just going off of some of the social media posts that I've seen. That includes, but I don't believe is limited to, Amber Rutherford, Samuel Diaz, Angel Diaz, Melanie Ortiz, John Curatolo, and then, of course, fighting coach Mike Conroy is stepping away from Team KTOC as well. So that is very big news from one of the teams that is at all of the major events. To have so many players moving in other directions right now is very interesting. And then there's going to be more big news coming up that has not been released yet about Mr. Conroy starting his own new team. And so there's going to be a new team coming out that is going to be coached by Mike Conroy. Those are all the details that I have right now. I don't know a team name. I don't know who's going to be on it. So that is upcoming breaking news before it actually happens. But there's definitely some news about a lot of these players either becoming free agents or moving on to different teams. Again, I don't know the status of all those athletes. But we've got some major players in there and some players that are going to be mentioned as we go through this top 10 from the AKA Warrior Cup. So that is a situation to keep your eye on within the sport karate community. We also recently saw on social media, Alex Reyes went out on Point Fighter and shared it. There was a coaches meeting between a lot of the coaches of the major teams in sport karate. And from what I understand, some of the topics that were discussed in this meeting revolved around prize money and various ways to kind of get the sport back to where it was and then continue to make the sport better from there. I wasn't on that call, so I don't know all the details of what was said. However, it's great to see so many of the top coaches in our league, in our sport, working together to create ideas and try to elicit positive change, right? And I think that that's something that's so special about the era that we're in sport karate right now, where so many people are working together and actively trying to make things better. And then the other bit of news that I've got is an update on the Fantasy Sport Karate League that I'm doing with Martial Arts Network, namely Inside Scoop, Alex Dingman, Jeff Doss, as well as CTE, the Chris Travis, and Carlos Experience, where we've got Chris Walker, Travis Plowden, and Carlos Tierney. So I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the results of that real quick, and then also shout out some of the players who scored some of the highest individual points within that fantasy league. So the matchups for AKA Warrior Cup was myself and my team versus Travis. I wound up getting the win there. Carlos was up against Alex Dingman, and Los got the win. And then Jeff was up against Chris, and in a nail biter that came down to essentially a commissioner's arbitration about whether or not Jeff was going to be penalized because Jeff drafted himself onto his fantasy team and then broke one of his nunchucks. And so there was a rule in the fantasy league about dropping and how that would be negative points, but it's not Jeff's fault that his nunchuck broke, right? And so Jeff, by literally a half a point, was able to edge out Chris Walker, and that was like the most exciting part of the entire week. There are some discrepancies in the scoring. We are going to be doing some rule updates. We've been talking in our group chat about the fantasy league, and I know that many of you might be following along and doing fantasy leagues of your own. Originally, when we first talked about the rules, we thought there was going to be a margin of victory bonus, whether you want, one of your players won their fight by a certain number of points, or somebody won their forms or weapons division by a certain majority of the judges. Unfortunately, that's just too difficult to track. There's no really good record of what the score was for every little round of competition that we would need to have access to in order to calculate to that level of specificity. So we're probably going to be dropping the margin of victory bonus. Those results that I just told you guys about is without the margin of victory bonus included. So it's basically just people were scoring points for winning their division, winning their runoff, winning the overall grand, winning the Warrior Cup. And now I'm going to switch from the notepad to the phone and highlight a couple of the players that scored the most in that fantasy league. So the highest scorer, the highest fantasy point scorer in sport karate for the AKA Warrior Cup was women's fighting Warrior Cup champion Kitana Everett. Scored 18 points for winning the open weight, winning her overall, then going and winning the semifinal in the Warrior Cup, and then also winning the Warrior Cup. She racked up 18 fantasy points over the course of the weekend. Second place was Aiden Kennedy, who came out of retirement for kind of a final performance. He scored 15.5 points over the course of the weekend. Then we've got Mason Stowell, who racked up 13 points with his Warrior Cup win. So the top three all Warrior Cup champions this weekend. Not surprising, because winning the Warrior Cup was a 7-point fantasy bonus. And then we've got three players, including two Warrior Cup champions, tied at 12 points. And that was Jake Presley, Isabella Nikolai, and D Stacks, the men's fighting Warrior Cup winner. So a three-way tie with 12 points for that fourth place spot. And then rounding out the top five, we had the super senior right now, Sam Diaz III, with 11.5 points, just a half point below that threshold with Jake and Isabella and D Stacks. So overall, lots of really high-performing players that were drafted into the league. Again, there's going to be some rule changes that we'll be announcing before Compete Nationals happens. One thing that we noticed is how hectic it was trying to pick up players based on who showed up to the tournament, who's there but not competing, who surprised us and is competing. So we got some kinks to work through like that, as well as figuring out some scoring discrepancies. For example, in forms and weapons, the way that it was originally written, winning a division was only worth half a point. But if you dropped your weapon and got disqualified in that division, well, your team lost a full point. And it isn't really fair to penalize a full point for a drop and only give a half point benefit for winning the whole division. So we're going to have some of those changes, and we'll be announcing those as we do them. I'll talk to the guys in the group chat, and we'll keep those rolling out. So there's a quick little fantasy sport karate update. Again, I hope that you guys follow along and create little fantasy leagues of your own, because we've been having a ton of fun doing that. And that will do it for this week in Sport Karate. So some big news in terms of tournaments, in terms of teams, and in terms of what's most important, right? The Sport Karate Fantasy League. And that does it for our news this week, which is the perfect segue to move us right into our topic of the day, which is going to be my personal top 10 favorite performances from the AKA Warrior Cup. And we are going to do this kind of in an old school Jackson Rudolph podcast way where we actually do a film study. And so I'm actually going to be doing a screen share and pulling up these videos as we go. So bear with me as I work through the technical side. This is a one-man operation, so I'm going to be running the show behind the scenes as well as kind of giving my explanations for where I'm ranking some of these competitors and some of these fights that I consider to be kind of the top 10 most exciting things or most impressive things that I saw at the Warrior Cup. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, go ahead and drop those comments down below. I will be looking at them intermittently. Since I'll be screen sharing, I won't be super interactive with the comments tonight, but definitely still put them down below, and I'll be stopping at certain points to take a look at those. So we're going to jump right into it with number 10 in our countdown. Team Revolution women's team fighting. They came to play at the AKA Warrior Cup, and I'm going to go ahead and get this screen share going here. All right, we're going to share screen, and we want a Chrome tab, and we're going to pull up this one right here, share. All right, here we go. We're going full screen. Perfect. So we've got, I've got the full live stream from Black Belt Magazine and sportmartialarts.com pulled up right here. And we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to go ahead and play the film, and we will have a look. So Team Revolution faced off against Team Velocity in that final. And, of course, it looks like we're going to need an ad. Oh, we've got an ad on the way, so I'll just talk through it. So we've got Team Revolution featuring Jimena Janeiro and Alexa Fleshman. They are two of the hottest female point fighters right now in terms of their ability to come in the ring and get those wins, especially in the team fighting division. They make for a great 1-2 punch. Alexa with the reach, Jimena, the smaller fighter that can move around a little bit more. And so the matchups that they can work with, even with just a two-woman fighting team, as NASCAR rules, or in women's team fighting, it's only two fighters. The matchup switches they're able to create, I think, give them an advantage. And in addition to the fact that they're both great fighters, as we're going to have a look at right here when I go over this fight. So we've got Alexa stepping into the ring first. You can see in the background of that shot, we got Coach Edgar Cordova looking on from the side. We see her opponent trying to work the kicks a little bit. Alexa does a great job on defense. Now she's showing off some of that movement around the ring. Again, Velocity trying to get it going with some kicks. Alexa keeps up the great defense. And if you're part of our Black Belt Magazine audience that's tuning in and maybe you haven't seen much point fighting before as Alexa attacks and scores over the top with some hand techniques, the name of the game in point fighting is speed, right? So nobody's trying to knock each other out. This is all about which fighter can get to the target first, the target being the helmet or any part of the torso, not the back. You can't hit to the back of the head, just not the neck. And so that's the goal of point fighting, is to be the person that can hit the cleanest, fastest technique first. Let's say the referee, in this case Terry Creamer, will call the match to a stop. Then the judges will score, and then whichever competitor gets the majority of judges' calls, if the judges saw their point land, they'll be awarded a point, just as Team Velocity was right there. So again, we're highlighting Team Revolution here, Alexa Fleshman in the ring. And a lot of times in the opening round of a team fight, you won't really see any of the fighters taking too many risks or trying to be too over-aggressive. They want to get a feel for the flow of the fight and try to make sure that their team has a lead when they go into the next fighter, which in the women's team fight, that's going to be the anchor. Your second fighter is the anchor, right? In men's, you got 2 rounds before you get to the anchor, but in women's, it's just a 1-2 punch, right? And so once again, Alexa working the movement. It's interesting. When I was introducing this video, I talked about the movement that Jimena can show, but Alexa's been showing off her defensive movement very well here. Throws the side kick, which obviously sent her opponent to the ground, but it kind of landed up on the shoulder. From where I was watching that in the commentating booth, we actually couldn't see that landed on the shoulder. We thought that might have gotten in on the torso there and would have been a scoring technique, but at that angle, you can definitely see it landed on the shoulder. So we've got a 2-2 match. And that sends us into the second round, where for Team Revolution, it will be Jimena's job to take this thing home. Fighters are going to switch out. And once again, for those of you that are in our Black Belt Magazine audience that maybe don't watch sport karate very much, Team Revolution is in the green and white uniform, Team Velocity in the black and yellow. And then we've got center referee and two-time Warrior Cup champion Terry Creamer clarifying the score, maybe? Oh, he's clarifying what you have to win by. I think he's saying it's win by 2. Exactly. So making it clear to the fighters and the coaches that it is win by 2 with a lot of the question marks around rules that have been coming up recently. It was a good thing to clarify that as the center referee. And then Jimena playing defense as the Velocity fighter is on the attack, but nobody's able to score. And then really the reason that I list these ladies at number 10 is because of their consistent ability to make it to these finals and win women's team fighting really over the past 6 to 9 months. It's not just for this performance, although it was a solid performance in which they got the win. Really, this number 10 spot is for their cumulative efforts over the course of the last several months and proving that the Revolution women's fighting team is a formidable force in that division. And so now we see that great defensive movement of Jimena that I was talking about at the top of the show. She attacks on the blitz. Looks like that didn't quite land. She thinks that she got in with that second reverse punch. Nothing called there. 38 seconds left in the match. Again, the defensive movement from Jimena. And with only 30 seconds left, you know, the bystander, it's easy to start thinking like, you got to go. You got to get some points. You got to try to get a lead. But great fighters are patient. That's one thing that Mallory Woods and I were talking about in the commentating for this fight and for many others, is that you have to have patience as a point fighter. If you're always trying to push the issue and you're just trying to take off every single time, eventually the other fighter is going to be able to read that and take advantage on counter-striking. But Jimena is able to put together a couple of combinations there. Now she's up 4-2, just seconds left. Velocity would need a kick, which they aren't going to get. And so Team Revolution is going to come out of that division the champions. And so at number 10 in our countdown, we've got Team Revolution Women's Fighting Team. And so now we're going to move on to number 9. And here's where my technical difficulties come into play because I got to switch our screens here. As we're switching screens, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the comments because we got some people chiming in here. Awesome. How's it going, Jeannie Jones? Nene, Grandma Presley, love to see you in here. So thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure that you chime in that comment section if you see somebody you like. Now we're going to jump down to number 9 in our countdown of my favorite performances from the Warrior Cup. We've got the 16-17 boys musical weapons division. I know this is cheating. It's not one person's form, but I watched that 16-17 musical weapons division on the live stream from sportmartialarts.com on Friday night, and I was blown away by the level of talent in that division. So that's what we're going to highlight next. So I'm going to go ahead and hit share here once again, and we're going to switch over to another tab this time. Let's see. We need... I got to take a gamble here on which one it is. There we go. It's this one. And we're going to hit share. Perfect. All right. And so now I'm just going to, let's go full screen. We're going to let this one play. Now, I will skip over a little bit here. We're not going to sit here and try to watch this full division or else the show would take way too long. But I do want to highlight some of these high-level athletes. And it's not a perfect camera angle. It was a static, camera angle. There's nobody manning this camera. But we're going to work with what we got. We got Philip Brumet coming up first with the big opening move. True sport karate fans get that big opening move reference. All right, so Philip's doing his introduction. Opened up with that B-twist court combination that he does so cleanly, and it's so unique. You don't see anybody into the ring like that, really. And then another thing that I love about Philip is just his intensity, right? Every time he steps in the ring, he's going to bring it, and you know it. And really, you need that in this division. In this 16-17 boys musical weapons division, the talent is so deep, it's incredible. And so we see Philip. One thing that I love about Philip is that he's really improved his cutting. You know, Philip used to be somebody that was known for his tricks and his creativity, but now he's really starting to develop his game with his basics. He's hitting good stances. The extension on his kicks is unreal. This camera angle does a disservice to the extension on those tricking kicks that he was just throwing. And his cuts have gotten so much better. He cuts stronger. His 7 cuts have better reach and extension on them. And that's something that, I work with Philip privately, and I've been telling him about that. He's done a really good job of making those adjustments. So as Philip obviously goes out of frame here for a moment, I'll just, you guys got to trust me when I tell you how good this was. And there he is right back in frame. There's the pop front kick, the beautiful pointed toes on the extension there. right into the release combo, throwing both combos at the same time. I think that's something that's often underrated in terms of, kids choreographing their own routines, is that if you've got two commas or two chucks or two bows or two swords, your advantage over the other single weapons, like a single sword, a single bow, is that you can throw both of them at the same time. If you're only throwing one of the weapons at a time, you're really not gaining any advantage over the single weapons competitors. They're going to be throwing their weapon one at a time, right? And so if you're using a dual-wielded weapon in a sport karate competition, throw both of those weapons at the same time to show that difficulty in your release, because that is something that single weapon competitors can't do. And then now we're going to get a change of pace here. Again, this is the musical division where you would typically see a creative or extreme style performance. But we're going to get a traditional routine here from Shane Billow. An interesting strategic decision because this division is so full of high-level difficulty. But there are certain judging panels that this will work with, and Shane could find himself getting some wins. And he does in the traditional weapons division. He made it all the way in the traditional weapons division. Rode that all the way to the overall grand championship round at the AKA Warrior Cup. So Shane is proving himself as a formidable traditional weapons competitor. And now he's trying to use those skills in the musical division. Of course, I've got it muted right now for copyright purposes, as well as so that you guys can hear my commentating and my thoughts over some of these top athletes. And one thing that I think that Shane has improved a lot about his game is his speed's gotten a lot better. And what I mean by better speed isn't just that he moves faster, but a younger Shane Billow, when he was in, the 14, 15 age group, he would sometimes go fast to the detriment of his striking, but he does a much better job now of maintaining that speed and also getting much better extension on his strikes. So I got to tip my cap to somebody that can step their game up in terms of speed and also improve their technique at the same time, because that's something that's very, very difficult to do. And so there is Shane Billow and his traditional weapons routine, again, in the musical divisions. There's music playing there. And then now we're going to move over to Elijah Williams, who I want to put in the spotlight here. He's a member of Team Competitive Edge. He does suffer a stumble in this routine, but in the early goings of this routine, this was as good as I have ever seen Elijah look, and I was super proud of this performance. He trains out of Premier Martial Arts Lebanon, formerly known as Success Martial Arts Center, where I tested for my 4th degree black belt. Of course, Success Martial Arts Center, known as the home of the Presley family, and now also the home of the Williams family, Elijah, and then all of his siblings, including fellow Competitive Edge members such as Aiden Williams, his mom, Amy Williams, Miri Williams, an inspiration to everybody, right? So this is Elijah. And he's going to show us his sword routine here. And one thing that I love about Elijah's sword, especially as it's improved over the last couple of years, is kind of like I was talking about with Shane, is he has a very unique opening move there, taken off of both feet. But similar to Shane, Elijah's also done a great job of improving his basics. And for those of you that are tuning in that don't watch sport karate much, that is the number one judging criteria. You see them do the flips and the tricks, but the number one judging criteria is the execution of foundational martial arts techniques, stances, strikes, cuts, whatever it may be. And then as you see, if they mix in the difficulty, they can get bonus points for that. But the primary judging criteria is those foundational martial arts basics. And so we see the touchdown raise into the cork, and he lands the cork going directly into that horizontal cut, which I love to see. And then I think, if I remember correctly, there were several pretty unique releases in here. And I think the stumble comes up here in just a moment. Yeah, so he's got the beach twist, and then I love how he does that slashing cut as he lands on the knee coming out of the beach twist. And then now he's setting up for a trick coming up to the front. Yeah, goes for the Arabian and comes right down into the cut. Love that little putting together the tricking and the cut. I mean, I love that idea, and I think that's something that Elijah did very well in this routine. So I love seeing that. I must have been talking over the point at which he stumbled. Either that or I was thinking about the wrong form. But either way, Elijah with an excellent performance. I was happy to see Elijah stepping his game up in terms of his basics. And again, I love that style he's got of mixing together the tricking with some of the cuts. I think that that's a nice concept that he can continue to build upon. Now we're going to move on into Esteban Trembla. And then really this division came down to this bow battle between Esteban Trembla and Ben Jones. They at least that's how the judges saw it. That's who wound up being the top two guys in the scoring. And I would not want to be one of those judges. The performances that you're going to see here from Esteban and Ben are just outrageous. And again, if I was sitting in that judge's chair, I wouldn't even know who to pick. Watching it live, I had no idea who was going to win because both of these guys were so electric with their performances. And then, of course, Esteban, the one of the ultimate showmen in this sport, right? You can see the attitude. You can see the way he carries himself when he walks into the ring. Extremely confident, one of the most confident competitors that I've ever worked with. When he steps into the ring, he knows that he's going to kill it. He knows that he's going to be on fire, and he is just about every time. And that's one of the things that makes him so great is his confidence. It's not arrogance, but it's confidence. And then you see, of course, his intensity there as well. We talked about how important it is to be intense in this division. I also like the creativity of the striking in that intro. It was subtle, but it was kind of a unique intro. You don't see people typically putting together those little stance and shifts combinations like Esteban just did. And then as we see him take off into the opening strike combo, good strikes, nice and leveled, going to the target, pretty good thirds position, good speed, right into the tricks, huge D-leg full there, landing on the knee, right back into the striking combination. And then, of course, the difficulty of his bow tricks is insane as well, as you're going to see as we get later into this form. Zero gravity into the back roll, behind the head catch, triple, stomps it directly into the front stance. That's a catch that we worked on together. Love, love, love the aesthetic of that, seeing him hit the front stance. And then his signature, kind of adjusting the hair as he does the release there. Love that. Again, so much of this is just like vintage Esteban. And then right into the tricking combo coming off of the bow tricks. That's something that's a big thing in the sport right now. Not only being able to do the tricking or to do the weapons tricks, but taking one into the other. Oh, and then he throws the Webster and takes the drop. Okay, so this division, this must have been the musical. This is not the division that I actually watched the live stream on. Because the live stream that I watched, Esteban and Ben both hit their forms. Mason Bumba had a drop and Elijah had a stumble. So when Elijah hit his form, I was wondering, like, wait a minute, this isn't the division I watched. But either way, we're still getting to showcase these boys that I wanted to talk about because of how good they are. We're going to see Riley Tracy here, but in the interest of time, I want to go ahead and speed up here to Ben Jones because it was he and Esteban, that showdown that I wanted to highlight. Here's Ben. And then trust me, y'all, we're going to get to Mason later. That's why I'm not too worried about showing Mason right now because he's going to come up later on in this countdown. We got to start moving things a little bit more quickly here too, or else this is going to be a 2-hour episode, which, hey, you guys might want, but I got other plans tonight too. So we got Ben Jones here. And then Ben's confidence, you know, Ben and Esteban have this interesting kind of anti-parallel between them where Esteban's confidence kind of, he portrays it through his intensity and the way he carries himself and, you know, kind of the swag that he has. Whereas Ben's confidence is equal in magnitude, but it's more of a quiet confidence, right? And you can tell in his demeanor. He looks every bit as confident as Esteban did, but he presents it differently. And I think that that's a great case study for young competitors of how there's not one blueprint for how you be intense or how you put on a show or the character that you become when you compete. It really is dependent on you, your personality. And honestly, that reflects the way that Ben and Esteban both are. You know, the way that Ben's got the more quiet confidence and Esteban's is a little bit more demonstrative. But anyway, as Ben goes into his form here, very high level of difficulty. I don't know how he caught that 2.5 spin. You saw his arm was like completely inverted when he made that catch. That was incredible. A great adjustment on his part. Going into the 540, the speed of these tricks is insane. And then having the style and swag there to put the hands on the hips and add some entertainment during that 360 zero gravity. I love that new move. The 360 and then the catch with one hand at the bottom of the bow, one hand on the top, kind of behind his back. I absolutely love that. I went crazy the first time he showed that to me, and he made that up himself. I didn't give him that move. That is a Ben Jones move. He created that all on his own, so he deserves all the credit in the world for coming up with that. And he used that move to take him all the way into the stage rounds at the AKA Warrior Cup, where ultimately he would have a stumble on that move and wind up falling short to Mason Bumba, who had an incredible routine, which we're going to get to later in this countdown. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this screen. And go ahead and get rid of that Facebook tab. So that is number 9 on the countdown. We've got the 16-17 boys musical weapons division. Now we've got a streak of several that come from the night show, if I remember correctly. So we'll be able to roll through these a little bit quicker. I'm going to check out the comment section real quick. Jeannie Jones showing love for her boy Ben. Michael Brumet says that division was straight fire. Of course it was. Absolutely. So, yeah, that division is stacked. 16-17 boys. If you find yourself in an Ask a tournament, you don't know what to do, go ask somebody where the 16-17 boys division is, because it doesn't matter what division they're competing in, it's going to be heat. You've got to go watch that division. That is must-see TV. Now we're going to switch over to number 8 in our countdown of my favorite performances from the AKA Warrior Cup. And again, I cheated. We got a tie. We've got Sophia Rodriguez Flores and Avery Presley. Both of these ladies just moved up into the 14-17 division, which is a very difficult thing to do. Moving from that 13 and under where you're competing against children, right? And then moving up into 14-17 where now everybody's a teenager. You've got 14-year-olds, sometimes even 13-year-olds that haven't turned 14 yet, competing against people who are about to graduate high school. They're competing against 17-year-olds that are practically adults at that point, right? And so the age gap in the 14-17 division is pretty severe. I don't think it should change. I think that that's how it should be, because you can't really split it up any differently than that, have it be efficient and make sense. But still being able to be successful coming up from the 13 and under and then winning right away in 14-17, as Pia, Sophia Rodriguez Flores, and Avery were able to do, is really impressive. And they happened to compete against each other in the finals for the Forms Overall Grand Championship. And so I thought that was the perfect opportunity to highlight them. So we're going to screen share once again. Again, technical standby here. We're going back to the finals. There's our screen share, and I've got a timestamp on this one at 32 minutes and 56 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and click our way there. 32, a little bit too far. 33:02, that'll work. All right, here we go. And so we've got Avery Presley up first here. And of course, it looks like we're getting another ad. That's going to be the show tonight, right, guys? We're just going to get ads left and right. Pop-Tarts. Who doesn't love Pop-Tarts, right? Not a sponsor of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, but Pop-Tarts, if you see this and you want to sponsor a sport karate show, hit me up. All right, so we got Avery Presley rocking the pink logo on the Competitive Edge uniform. That is a clean look, pink logo on the Competitive Edge uniform. And apparently they played the wrong music for her at first, so we had a little bit of a delay there. But that's all right. As a true professional, she turns around and says, "Hey, DJ, fix that," and then turns around and refocuses. And looks like we should be getting started here shortly. You know, what's funny is that whenever I commentate, apparently I go brain dead, because I don't remember there being this delay before Avery's form started. Obviously, it wasn't that long. Here she is. She's going now. She's in the zone. But little things like that, like when you're in the zone and you're commentating, you just don't even realize it. Now, one thing that I do like about using the royalty-free music in the night shows now for these broadcasted streams, in addition to the fact that we can broadcast now, is the fact that competitors, they walk on stage and they get to it, right? We don't spend all the time with the intros and the competitors saying their name after they already said their name. Anyway, we're going to talk about Avery now. Love the hand combos, love the extension. She's had a growth spurt as she moves up into the 14-17 division, which gives her that really nice reach on those chop punches, which I think has a really nice aesthetic to it. And then, of course, she's got the high-level tricking to go with it. Earlier in the routine, we saw an axe aerial, which I think looks great on her. And then, of course, we got the aerial there with that little leg grab. You kind of call that a statue aerial to the knee. So a really strong performance there for Avery. And she was also on stage for the weapons division. So she won both of those CMX runoffs. She was on stage for the 14-17 girls weapons and forms. And then she actually won the overall grand championship in the weapons category, made it all the way to that Warrior Cup final to ultimately compete against Mason, as well as Wasim Driddy, who won 13 under boys, and Cody Molina, her teammate on Competitive Edge now, who won the 13 under girls weapons with her Kama routine. And so now we have Avery's opponent in this division, Sophia Rodriguez Flores. And this is, I've watched Pia a lot because she competes against a lot of the Competitive Edge players and stuff like that. So I watch Pia all the time. This was as good as I've ever seen Pia look. Her performances both in this overall grand championship and then in the Warrior Cup round, because she would go on to win here, she was phenomenal. She was on fire. So Sophia, congratulations to you. You looked awesome, and that's why you get featured on the Jackson Rudolph podcast right here. And then one thing that Mallory Woods and I talked about a lot on the broadcast is the choreography to the music. It really is a shame that for the purposes of the podcast, I can't play the music in the background. But to be using royalty-free music and to find a way to choreograph it to this kata so beautifully was something that I think all of us really appreciated in the booth, on the production side, and then, of course, the judges appreciated it as well. You see the excellent balance here at the beginning of the routine. I also really like this form. I think it's well formatted. You know, a lot of traditional katas now, they start really slow, but this particular kata starts with the balance move and then the jumping front kick, and then it gets into some of this, kind of bread and butter of a traditional kata in today's NASCA, which is the cat stances and the double knife hands and the breathing techniques and, the things that you would see in a super enpei or a shatnyara kusanku. So you get into some of those fundamental techniques as well, but you kind of have to show that you can do it well. But again, I like how this form mixes it up a little bit compared to kind of the more typical variations of those katas that we see done today. And then Sophia trains out of the Kansekan Dojo in Miami. That's also where my fiance Gabrielle trains with Robert Young. And Sensei Robert Young happens to be the guy who trains Ariel Torres, the Olympic bronze medalist for Team USA. So obviously one of the best coaches in the game for this. And the results of that training is showing in Pia's performance here. Beautiful poise. Excellent technique. We're going to click away this ad right here. We're getting ads all over the podcast today, and I'm not getting paid for any of it. Another beautiful cat stance. And then I also noticed in post-production how much that boom camera was coming out over the stage. I didn't realize that it was actually coming out onto the stage where the athlete was, which is kind of cool. For a traditional kata, I don't assume that it'd be that big of a deal, but for a weapons form, I can imagine that would present some anxiety. We got some great intensity there from Sophia, getting to the closing moments of this routine. And then really just a beautiful performance from Sophia. So, Sophia, congratulations to you. That was an awesome performance. And hats off to both Sophia and Avery for a great welcome to the 14 to 17 division. Again, something that's really, really hard to do. And they both dominated, made it all the way to the Grands. Avery in 2 different divisions. Sophia was part of a 3-way tie in the traditional weapons division earlier with Avery, as well as Riley Raynone, who actually went on to make stage as well. So great division there in that 14-15 girls ring, and I'm excited to see what they've got to offer the rest of the season. Now we're going to switch back here as we get to number 7 on our countdown. Number 7, we're going to give some love to the senior competitors. We got the super seniors, and again, it's another tie. I promise I get better about this as the show goes on. We've got Samuel Diaz III and Jeff Doss. Their performances blew me away. I was very impressed by both of them, the nostalgia of Jeff's performance, and then, of course, seeing Sam on stage representing the seniors in both Warrior Cup finals for forms and weapons. You got to show some love for that, right? So we're going to go ahead and have a look at Sam's first because he's on this same tab, so I don't have to switch my screen share. My timestamp on that is 3:58:42. So we're going to find that timestamp real quick. And here we go. So we've got Samuel Diaz III, and I picked his weapons routine just because I love seeing traditional kamas in this division. Traditional kamas we almost never see because in the adult division where it's split into bladed and non-bladed traditional, you almost always get a sword competitor winning bladed and a bow competitor winning non-bladed, oftentimes justifiably so because we have some great sword and great bow competitors. However, it is a breath of fresh air to see some kamas up there every now and then. And then especially for a 30-plus competitor to be doing it. And he did not win his way on stage just as the 30-plus traditional weapons winner. He came down into the 18-plus, and he won the bladed division in the 18-plus, which is really impressive because that division just keeps getting deeper and deeper with sword competitors such as Dawson Holt and Ali Jahanbash, who are both great practitioners at the katana. And so we see Sam here. And then one thing that I said on the broadcast that Sam messaged me about afterwards is how much this style of commas reminds me of being a kid and watching Kevin Thompson, right? The grip on the commas, that low traditional grip, what some people would call a power grip. And of course, just the way that a traditional comma routine is put together. Even when Kevin did creative commas, he didn't do it like we see comma competitors do today. He ran it more like a traditional comma routine that had some high flying kicks and stuff like that in there with Kevin Thompson's signature charisma, right? And so just seeing a comma routine with that style done on stage, this turns out to be a variation of a traditional kind of gakkaku done with commas. But yeah, I love everything about that. So hats off to Samuel Diaz for an excellent routine, certainly deserving of being on stage at the Warrior Cup Finals. And then we got our throwback performance, Jeff Doss, new representative of Team Heartland, giving us some nostalgia. So I got to switch my tabs here once again. We're going to share screen, Chrome tab, and this is the other Facebook one. Perfect. I actually had Jeff send me this video before the show to make sure that I would get a chance to highlight it. Unfortunately, this video cuts off the signature water bottle smash up against the head. I can't believe that we're not getting the water bottle smash. But Jeff Doss, one of the most intense competitors of all time, one of the most unique intros of all time, and then, of course, what everybody already knows, one of the great kickers of all time, too. I love how he does this little, half circle of the ring as he approaches the judges. You can see the intensity. And again, the overwhelming emotion that I get when I watch this, and you can tell I'm excited because I'm moving my hands more, is nostalgia, right? I remember watching the old NBL videos of Jeff doing this at Super Grand so many times. And then it's just so fun to sit back and watch. So we see here the kicking skills. Hasn't lost a step. Look at this. Boom. All of that is choreographed to different beats. The high round kick at the end. Then he's going airborne, huge axe kick, jump 360 crescent kick to the splits, another axe kick there, and then kind of the jump front kick, switch into the splits. Just so unique. Love this. That is so hard to do. It's not even funny. The twist kick on the knee like that, the difficulty level of that is just insane. And then here, this is a crowd favorite. Does the leg grab, cocks it back a little bit, throws the axe kick out of it, and then another Jeff Doss signature, people's elbow, or sushi's elbow, as we should call it. And Jeff Doss then showing off the intensity there, tells him to stay down. I love that. I love everything about that. Shout out to Jeff Doss. Love seeing you back in the game, man. Cannot wait to watch you more over the course of the season. And at some point, we better get the intergalactic hand puppet form. And if you're a real sport karate fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to stop sharing that. So number 7 in the countdown goes to what I'm calling the super seniors of the weekend. We got Sam Diaz III and Jeff Doss. I tip my cap to you guys. Now we're moving. We're going on to number 6 in our countdown. We've got the Competitive Edge Team Sync Takeover, which included Ben Jones competing in both the Forms and Weapons division, competed in Weapons alongside Esteban Trembla and alongside Dawson Holt for the Forms division, won both of them, and then had to compete against himself with those opposing partners for the actual Sync Grand Championship, which is Forms versus Weapons. I know that that's hard to follow. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to show it to you right now. So we're going to share the screen one more time, and I think this is the last time I'm going to have to switch it up here, so we'll be moving after this. Perfect. So we're back to the Warrior Cup final stream, and my timestamp here is going to be 3:35:44. So let's find that real quick. 3:35, right there. And so up first was the empty hand performance. So this is the Forms division winners. Dawson Holt on your left, Ben Jones on your right. They walk out and they get right into it. Beautiful hands from both of them. Dawson Holt in particular, they call him Mr. Clean for a reason. It's because of his clean basics. And then, of course, Ben has a great technical game as well. These two guys are probably two of the cleanest competitors in the sport right now. And I'm talking Forms, Weapons, doesn't matter. They're both so technically sound and so precise. And it makes this form so much more fun to watch because you're seeing good karate the entire time. And then they bring it to a finish there. And then check out what Ben's going to do here, okay? So they're going to back up. Everybody's cheering. That's great. They dap each other up as all good sync partners should do. Jake Presley knows a thing or two about being dapped up after a sync form. I notoriously would always, after a good form, would turn around and slap his hand as hard as I could. So, Jake, if you're watching this, maybe you can tell everybody about that. And so Ben walks backstage, picks up a bow, comes back out on stage, and now here he is with Esteban Trembla, right? So we just watched these two duke it out in the weapons division in the 16-17 divisional round, and then now we see both of them cracking a smile on stage together. And Ben doing something here that is really unprecedented. I've never seen this before. I've never seen somebody win both divisions with a different partner in each division. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. If anybody has a historical reference of something like that happening, I'd love to hear about it. I'm going to refresh the vocal cords there. All right, so they take off going into it. And then, I mean, with the level of difficulty that both of these guys are capable of, this routine is only going to get better. There's so much that they can do with this. It's not even funny. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them as this routine evolves. One thing that I've learned from competing in the sync weapons division over the years is that from the first tournament in the season, the form typically changes a lot, especially when you have a new partner. So there's going to be edits to this form that happen. And then it looks like that might have been a little bit of an abbreviated version compared to what they did in the divisional round. But that might have been planned so that Ben can get a little bit of a breather and not have to run two full routines back to back. Just crazy. Like, the fact that this happened is wild. And then I think that because of that stumble that Esteban had there, Ben and Dawson wind up being the side of this that wins. But one thing that I do want to point out, because they clarified it to me after I wrote in my article about it, is that before this division, these three boys got together and decided to split the prize money amongst each other evenly. They didn't try to win the prize money from one another. And so that's a great sign of sportsmanship and brotherhood right there. So what number is this? Number 6 in my countdown. We've got the team sync division and the competitive edge takeover. You love to see it. So now we're going to move on as I switch back here. Number 5 in the countdown, keeping it with those 16-17 boys, Warrior Cup winner, Mason Bumba, right? So let me go ahead and move over to my timestamp here, and then we're going to watch this routine from Mason. So this is at 1:03:00. So let me jump back in the show a little bit. Let's see, 1:03. Oh, got to be delicate here. Here we go. Now, one thing that I love that the AKA Warrior Cup did, you'll notice that there were multiple boys CMX 14-17 competitors on stage in this overall grand championship. They actually took that 14-17 boys runoff and moved it into the stage round so that the crowd would get a chance to see these high-level competitors go against each other on stage. Not just in a ring in the middle of the day Saturday when whoever's standing around can get to see it, but this is up on the stage where everybody can see it, as it should be for this division. I would have liked to have seen them do the same thing for some of the ladies, because we got to see a lot more guys on stage than we did girls. So I would like there to be a little bit more equality in the gender ratio there. But A for effort. I love the fact that more of these boys were on stage because they deserve to be. And so Mason here, he's going to take off. Great striking early on, good speed, mixes in a little bit of wushu there. And then the level of difficulty is really what I want to talk about most in this performance. I love the creativity there to do the circus, and then as he's throwing it back, doing the 360 catch. That's a subtle element of difficulty there that not many people would notice. And then the orbiter, one of the moves that I made up. And people may not know this, but I actually trained Mason for a lot of his early career before he went on to Amerikick and then now Top 10 USA. And so now he does all of his own choreography. But it's cool to see, some of my tricks still finding their way into Mason's routine. But then he mixes it up with some of his own stuff too, like that little roll over the shoulder there and then the catch. Of course, that release B-twist has become one of his signature moves. And then this right here brought the house down. The throw into the Webster and then making the catch, that's insane. Now, my one criticism is that I would have liked to have seen him bow out there. I saw some people a little disappointed, and I was too. Martial arts should begin and end with respect. So to see him just kind of walk out like that, I know he didn't mean anything negative by it. He probably just thought that it was, that's a great form, let me walk it off, right? As more of a showmanship thing. But in a martial arts tournament, always bow in, always bow out. That's just my opinion. But doesn't take away from a great routine for Mason Bumba. I just thought he probably should have bowed out. But hats off to Mason Bamba. Extremely high level of difficulty. He nailed that routine. That Webster catch was insane. We were going crazy in the booth. The room was shaking. And ultimately, he took that win in the overall and then went on and wound up winning the overall not just the overall Grand Championship, won the Warrior Cup, won his second straight Warrior Cup. And, nothing but props for that, right? So congratulations, Mason, on an excellent performance, and can't wait to see what else you come out with over the course of the season. And speaking of Mason, that takes us from number 5 on our countdown to number 4 on our countdown, where we've got Mason Stowell, the other Mason of Top 10 Team USA. And now my timestamp here is going to be 2:58:27. So let me jump to that real quick. 2:58. There we go. That'll work. So we've got Mason Stowell, fresh off of competition in the WKF League. Oh, and of course, we're going to get hit with another ad. Liberty Mutual Insurance. The Jackson Rudolph broadcast is not brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance, but we're going to give you an ad for them anyway. Liberty Mutual, if you're watching, you want to sponsor the podcast, just let me know. We can make that happen. So anyway, we've got Mason Stowell here, and he's just been a dynamo over the course of the last 6 to 9 months as well. Really, statistically near unstoppable. He's won a lot of the adult divisions that he's competed in. I think he's won the Traditional Forms Overall Grand Championship at every adult tournament that he has attended, and also taking it all the way and winning some other major championships, right? Won the overall of overalls at Battle of Atlanta, where all the overall grand champions competed against one another. Won the ISKA US Open title. Won a diamond ring. Came to Chicago. Won a Warrior Cup. So in the span of, what is that, like 6 or 7 months, Mason has won the U.S. Open, a diamond ring, and a Warrior Cup. Like, he's accomplished the big three in a very short period of time, and it's a testament to his incredible level of skill, as you guys are seeing on display right now. So anybody that watches the podcast knows that I am a huge Mason Stowell fan. When I did not get to draft him in the fantasy league, I was very upset because I wanted to get Mason Stowell because he's an automatic overall grand championship if you draft him. And then in this case, he was an automatic Warrior Cup. And this kata in particular, he just owns. He runs it with so much power, so much confidence. The stances are beautiful. Again, I can't shout the praises of Mason Stowell enough. And he puts the work in. You see all the time on social media, posting the training videos, cross-training in the gym. He is committed to the game. He's also recently opened up a school as well, I believe. And so he's teaching now too. So he has committed his life to martial arts. And so hopefully because of that, we're going to get to see him on stage for years to come, winning these major titles and continuing to get better. I've not seen any regression from him. He hasn't been complacent because he's been winning everything as an adult. He has continued to get better and better every time I have watched him. And it's because he's got his sights set on bigger goals, right? He wants to go to these WKF events. He wants to compete in the Karate One Premier League. He wants to be the #1 rated kata competitor in the world, not just on NASCA, but by the WKF, the gold standard of kata. That's what he wants to do, and he's capable of it. He is an American athlete that can absolutely do that. And that is Mason Stowell. I believe that's him bringing it to a close. Yes, it is. So, again, Mason Stowell, congratulations. Love watching you perform, my man. I still want to see you make it back to the CMX division. Every time I talk about Mason Stowell, I mention that I want to see his CMX form come back. But nonetheless, great stuff on the traditional side of things. So we are more than halfway through our countdown now. We have made it into the top 3. And before we go into the top 3, I'm going to take a look at our comments and see what people are chiming in here with. People are saying they love it. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for the support. We're going to do some film study episodes like this more often. I love being able to share these performances with you. I want to take some more trips down memory lane to get some more historic film studies going. Next week, I do plan on having a guest, so we'll get back into our normal groove of having a guest on the show all the time. So stay tuned for updates on that. But thank you guys for all of your love and support. And now we are going to go ahead and transition to number 3 on our countdown, the return of the Prodigy, Aiden Kennedy. And I call Aiden Kennedy the Prodigy as I go ahead and try to pull this up. The timestamp on this one is 2:52:28. which isn't that far back. There we go. So the reason I call Aiden Kennedy the Prodigy is because I was one of Aiden Kennedy's early coaches because he was a bow guy coming up. And he didn't compete in weapons here at this recent Warrior Cup. He had been out of the game for a little while and just came back to do forms and dedicate this performance and ultimately this Warrior Cup win to Sensei Sharkey as he lands a flawless double cork right there. But a young Aiden Kennedy was potentially one of the most gifted sport martial artists that we've ever seen. His technical execution, the level of difficulty that he could do at a young age was insane. And it wasn't just God-given ability. That was certainly a part of it. But he worked for this too. And you can tell how many hours he's put in by the execution that he has throughout this routine. Beautiful extension on the axe kick. His tornado kicks are a work of art. The beautiful shuriken cutter. You know, most people land a shuriken cutter and their head is below their waist and they got to drag themselves up to be able to continue the routine. Aiden Kennedy made it look easy. That is such a difficult move to make look easy. It's not even funny. D-leg full back to the center of the ring and then closes it out. A little bit of a signature team AKA hand combination there. That's one thing that I like to see when a competitor on Team AKA mixes in some of those like classic Team AKA hand combos, like that double out of forearm block. You also see sometimes like the look away back fist in the middle of a combination, things like that. Another one is like the ridge hand into the spear chop punch, stuff that you see in those side swipe demos, right? I love it when we see AKA hand combos, but the competitors mixing it up. They're not just copy and pasting old Team AKA hand combos. They're finding new ways to put it in their routine. And so Aiden Kennedy, this was one of my favorite performances of the whole weekend. As you can tell, it made the top 3. And it might be the last time we ever get to see him. I hope it's not. What's interesting is I asked him on Sunday morning. I was like, so are you going to be traveling now? Because that was really good, and I'd love to see you back. And he was like, well, I had a lot of fun. We'll see. And that didn't sound like it was going to be the last time we ever see him. But then the next day he makes a post and he's like, hey, came out of retirement just one time. That was for Sensei, which is cool and all. But like, Aiden, you don't have to be retired. Like, you can go to Hollywood and you can still come to NASCAR tournaments every now and then so that I can watch you do this form, right? Anyway, Aiden Kennedy, number 3 on the countdown. You, sir, that was an excellent performance. Certainly worthy of a Warrior Cup. Now, number 2, I'm going to admit, this is biased. I am biased. Number 2 is biased, but I don't care because it's my boy. It's my sync partner, Jake Presley. Jake Presley's traditional weapons form always brings the house down. It's one of the few traditional weapons forms that has proved in the junior and now in the adult division that he can win overall grands with it, right? I did it a few times in my tenure, both as a junior and as an adult, but most of the time you saw me on stage, it was for CMX. Jake was dealing with some injuries and therefore hasn't been doing CMX as much. So he's been leaning on that traditional and it's been working. He took it to the US Open stage where he competed against me last year. He's won multiple overall grand championships with his traditional bow form, and that is difficult to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get Jake's form pulled up here. My timestamp on this one, we got 3:52:56. So let me go ahead and find that real quick. 3:52, close to the end of the show here. And we've got none other than Jake Presley. And the thing that I always tell people about when it comes to Jake and what makes Jake different as a traditional weapons competitor is look at the character that he becomes. When Jake performs this routine, he becomes somebody else. He is no longer Jake Presley. He is this ruthless bow murderer that is going to stop anything in his path, right? And so look here when he comes up from the bow. He was focused and all before he bowed, but he bows, a long pause at the bottom. And this is straight psychopath, right? When he comes up from the bow, he's gone psycho, right? And he is, look at this. He is a completely different human being than he was 10 seconds ago, right? And being able to flip that switch is everything in a division where you have to be able to perform well to show off how good your techniques are when being compared to CMX competitors as he was being compared to in this Warrior Cup round. Not to mention the execution, right? Got the little Mike Bernardo monkey hop there, huge jump going down to the stab, and then here's some more of this signature Jake Presley performance, right? Takes his time, stands up. He definitely killed that guy. Looks at him. Now he's going to look up to his next victim. Again, it looks like a fight. This is what it would look like if he was fighting for his life, right? Big stab, turning the other direction, block across the body. And then his ability to go from 0 to 100, right? His ability to speed up and then stop on a dime is extremely impressive. There's not many people that can go from being totally stopped to being that fast and then right back to being totally stopped again right on cue. There's so many elements of Jake's traditional bow form that are so impressive, and that is not a biased opinion. It's a biased opinion. It's my second favorite thing that I saw all weekend. It's not biased that it's that good. Almost jumps out of the camera frame there, showing off the intensity at the end, and then the big finish for Jake, who won his 5th Warrior Cup. 5 is a big number, and I believe that either ties or goes one past what Mike Chat's record was, which Mike Chat, obviously an all-time great. And Jake's starting to get up there in that territory. You got number 1 all-time, Ross with 9, and then you've got me with 7. So Jake is starting to sniff around that area. So it'll be interesting to see over the next few years if Jake keeps doing it, if Jake's able to maybe collect a couple of more Warrior Cups. And, of course, I'll be super proud of him if he does. So, Jake, hats off to you, my man, for the 5th Warrior Cup win and a great traditional weapons form as always. And that brings us to our grand finale for the topic of the day, the top 10 performances that I saw at the AKA Warrior Cup. Come on. This was D-Stacks's coming out party. He said, "Hello, world. I am one of the best point fighters in the game right now. Watch me," right? And so we're going to switch it up to number 1. We got D-Stacks, Darren Payne versus Cameron Dawson. And let me find my timestamp on this one here. We've got 3:26:51. Let me locate that real quick. Here we go. And so Cameron Dawson, D-Stacks' opponent in this fight, Cam, in my opinion, one of the top heavy. Oh, of course, we're going to get an ad. And we have a shirtless arrow shooting cartoon. Okay, this is great. So Jackson Rudolph podcast will never be sponsored by HeroWars.com. We're not going to go that route. All right, here we go. So what I was saying about Cam, right? Cam, in my opinion, is one of the top heavyweights of the last decade. He is a generational point fighter. He's won Warrior Cups. He's won major championships. And he continues to evolve his game, right? Like he added this swift kind of fading away hook kick that he hit multiple people with over the course of the weekend that I had not seen from him before. So that's a new tool in his bag. He continues to change his game and continues to evolve as a fighter, which is one of the reasons that he's creating a resume as one of the greats, right? And so, of course, we've got Cam in the white, D-Stacks in the red for next level. D-Stacks already scored a point here. And then the thing that really impressed me that D-Stacks showed here, for such a young fighter, he's still only 17. He won an adult fighting Warrior Cup at the age of 17, which was legal, by the way, because he's turning 18 this year. So don't get on to him about the Jack Felton rule, right? But look at the composure. A lot of young fighters would make it to a Warrior Cup round, and they'd be fighting against a generational talent at heavyweight, and they'd be psyching themselves out. Oh, I got to score quick. I got to get a lead. I'm fighting against Cam Dawson. Like, oh, my gosh, right? That's what a normal 17-year-old would be thinking in this situation. Look how calm D-Stacks is. It's 2-2. He's not rushing. He's taking his time. He's not falling into Cam's counter-striking. Now, Cam, of course, does get him a few times, as we've seen already. But the patience that he shows as he lands that quick back fist there, it looks like, and he does get the score for it. He's kind of fading away, throws that quick counter back fist. Using his length. Look how far he's reaching out with that left hand. Using his length to kind of keep Cam away to make sure Cam's not trying to get any points back. Takes off there, gets another point for it. Now he's got a 4-2 lead. And again, he's got his lead. He's comfortable. He's just staying there, playing some defense. Now, the other thing to notice is that Cam's not panicked, right? Because Cam's one of the best in the game, so Cam knows what he's got to do to win this fight. He's got to pick his spots. A 2-point deficit is nothing. You're one kick away, right? Especially on NASCAR where you're one body kick away. So neither fighter has a real stranglehold over the fight here. But again, this is where a normal 17-year-old would be like, I'm up 4-2 on Cam Dawson. Like going into the second round, I got a 2-point lead on Cam Dawson. I'm 2 minutes away from a Warrior Cup. Now there's no reason for me to commentate on my face, so we're going to fast forward this a little bit. I can commentate on Mallory's face, though. He's a good-looking guy. We're going to fast forward. We're going to keep fast forwarding. There we go. Now we're on to round 2. So again, then look at this. D-Stacks maintaining his composure, goes for the body punch there. Do they give it to him? Nothing. I thought that body punch might actually land it. D-Stacks dives in again. Then just picking his spots. No score there. Blocks that side kick nicely. Cam goes for the step-in back fist. They don't call it. So there's a back fist either way, or a hand technique either way. That could have been called, but kind of hard to tell just watching it once on a live stream. Slightly choppy footage as well. And then Cam does get that kick in there, tie game, right? So we're looking at, this is probably a minute and a half, 10 seconds left somewhere in there. And we got a tie game, right? And so it's a great fight. It's exciting till the end. Both fighters are active. It's not like they're being overly defensive. They're both fighting their game. And then the other cool part of this is that, in many ways, Darren is kind of a protege of Cam's. And so it's almost like a teacher-student type deal. It's not exactly that, but it kind of feels that way. And so you see a lot of similarities in their style. It's almost like D-Stacks's patience comes from Cam's patience, right? And Cam's going for the counter-striking, and we do see Darren being the aggressor more. But again, given what we saw from them the whole weekend, they're both just fighting their fight. They're not changing their game too much as Darren loads up to throw the reverse punch there, but Cam got there quicker. Again, we're 30 seconds left in this match, and it's 5-5. This is anybody's game. This is two of the best heavyweights in the world right now playing a chess match. And then subtle thing there, anybody notice the agility there from Cam? He bailed on a counter strike and was almost completely off his feet and reset, got back into a fighting stance, was able to play some defense. Darren's able to get the kick in, though. That swings the momentum completely in his favor. After he lands that kick, as you just saw, scores with the hands. I think Cam's able to tack on a point there. Maybe, maybe not. He does tack on a point, but 2 seconds left, down 2. Can't get the kick in time. All D-Stacks has to do is fade away, and he is a 17-year-old Warrior Cup champion in the men's fighting division, the youngest to ever win a men's fighting Warrior Cup. That is impressive, right? Last person who was the youngest to ever win a men's fighting Warrior Cup was Ross Levine when he won the men's fighting and men's weapons Warrior Cup in his first year as an adult back in 2005. So maybe that bodes well for Darren Payne if he's doing something that Ross Levine did in the past, right? Now, to be fair, Ross did win the weapons division as well. So D-Stacks, we got to see you come out there with a bow next tournament and try to start getting some overall grands wins with that weapons form too, right? Of course, I'm just kidding. And then look at this. The deep, respectful bow from Cam to Darren. And then really right here, and this is where I'm going to pause it for the end of this segment, because this – and I wrote about this in my article, The Jackson's 5 for the AKA Warrior Cup. This is what Cam Dawson is all about. He just lost one of the most prestigious titles in sport karate, right? He was the favorite. He's one of the best heavyweights in the world. Darren is too, but Cam was favored to win that fight. When this fight ends, Cam shows nothing but respect and almost pride for Darren, right? Because again, Darren in ways is a pupil of Cam's. And so the way that Cam handled this situation was just beautiful. And the way that Cam was throughout the entire weekend was a reflection of just who he is. There was a situation in the open weights where he was going to fight against a teammate who he thought may have been shaken up a little bit. I didn't see it happen, but I heard the story after the fact. But essentially, Cam's teammate took a hard shot, was maybe a little bit dazed, and Cam thought that he would be endangering his teammate to continue fighting him. And so Cam bowed out. He said, I'm bowing out of the open weight. I'm not going to continue to fight you. You don't need to be fighting. And then ultimately, that teammate that was dazed wound up bowing out to Devin Hopper, who would go on to fight the open weight final against D-Stacks, right? So again, a display of sportsmanship from Cam there, and just so many other little things throughout the weekend. And one thing that I wrote about in the article, and I'll say again on the show, is it's the spirit that his dad wanted to develop in his son, right? And, since Gerald passed and the maturity that we've seen in Cam, and of course, Cam's now a new father as well. So congratulations, Cam, for that. It's just beautiful. And this is what it's all about, right? Because in 10 years, if I asked you who won the Warrior Cups in 2022 in any division, you probably couldn't tell me. You could probably make a guess, but you probably couldn't tell me who won the Warrior Cup in 2022. But you could tell me, do you remember how Cam Dawson was? Do you remember the type of guy he was? Do you remember the martial artist that he was? That's what matters. That's what leaves an impact on people. And that's why I was so proud to be Cam's teammate for the time that we were teammates together, because that's just the guy that Cam Dawson is, right? So Cam, if you're watching this, shout out to you, my man. I love you, my man. Once a teammate, always a teammate. And I wish you all the success in the world moving forward. And so now we're going to stop sharing there, and that will do it for our top 10 from the AKA Warrior Cup. I know we're up over the 1 hour mark. We just got a couple of more little things to get to, including the history highlight for this week, as well as the hashtag JRP challenge, where you have a chance to get featured on the podcast. I'm going to take a quick look at the comments, and then we're going to dive right into that. Let's see what we got here. Samuel Diaz, absolutely. Cameron Dawson is a class act. Couldn't agree more. Brought tears to the eyes of Jeannie Jones. Absolutely. All kinds of love for everybody, right? I mean, these guys, anybody that was in this top 10, great martial artists, great role models, and I can't wait to see all of these athletes back out there again. Hopefully at the Compete Nationals, but definitely over the course of the season. So that will do it for my top 10 countdown, my favorite performances from the AKA Warrior Cup. And now it is time for this week's edition of the History Highlight. So let me go ahead and bring that up for you guys. And according to popular demand, we are going to be bringing back the film study for the History Highlight. Since we just had the AKA Warrior Cup, I got to bring up one of my favorite all-time AKA Warrior Cup performances, and that is Brendan Hewer. I got to watch this in person, and it's probably my second earliest memory at AKA Warrior Cup. AKA Warrior Cup, back when it was a hybrid tournament with the Bluegrass Nationals, was the first tournament that I ever got a NASCA first place at in traditional weapons. That was back in 2007. So that's my number. That's my earliest AKA Warrior Cup memory. My second earliest memory from AKA Warrior Cup is watching Brendan Hewer on stage. So I'm going to go ahead and do another screen share here, and we're going to take a look at this performance from Brendan Hewer. Here it is. This is courtesy of course, the one and only sportmartialarts.com. 2008 AKA Grand Nationals. And he was one of those great Team AKA men's forms competitors that would go on to win the men's forms Warrior Cup. And I think Brendan Hewer collected several Warrior Cups over the course of his career. And he's my favorite Team AKA competitor of all time. Of course, second to my fiance, Gabrielle Dunn, because she's an AKA competitor. But in terms of just being a fan of the sport and not marrying any of them, Brendan Hewer was my favorite to watch. I mean, the style that he competed with, and look at this, walks right into the tricking combination, and he was an all-around martial artist. You've seen the clean hands and stances that he's demonstrating in this routine, the clean basic kicking there. Notice how he kicked with the ball of the foot on the pop front kick. I'm going to rewind this a little bit because nowadays everybody does the pointed toes, which I know is what everybody says is the right way to do it. But I love a good old traditional front kick, right? So like I said, we see the style here. And then if you're a real one, you remember that he did this performance to Kiss Kiss by Payne, which was just iconic. Look at this. Look at that. Kicks with the ball of the foot on the jump front kick. You love to see it. And that's Brendan Hewer. But what I was saying about being an all-around martial artist, he was also a great soft-style competitor as well. Whether it was weapons or forms, he could do great wushu-style routines. So just a great all-around competitor. I'm a huge fan of Brendan Hewer. And like I said, he's probably my favorite vintage Team AKA competitor. So there's your history highlight for this week. None other than the great Brendan Hewer. Of course, brother of Dana Hewer, who was also a great competitor who would go on to compete for Team Paul Mitchell. Now, last thing we got for the show tonight, we got the hashtag JRP challenge. Last episode's challenge was to post a picture from the AKA Warrior Cup, tag me in it with the hashtag JRP challenge. Our winner of the JRP challenge from last week is Leah Oswald, who made a nice post with a picture of me and her together, and because Leah is one of my students who I train with. And I also want to give Leah a shout out because she won her first ever NASCA division at the AKA Warrior Cup, winning the traditional forms division and getting to compete on the daytime stage for the runoffs, which I know was a really cool experience for her. So Leah, congratulations to you, not only for winning the JRP challenge this week, but also for making it, more importantly, for making it to that runoff in Chicago. That is a huge milestone in your career. And just like me, I made it to the runoffs for the first time at the AKA Warrior Cup, and now you have too. So shout out to Leah Oswald. Now, last thing is I got to tell you guys what the hashtag JRP challenge is going to be for this week. This one's easy. All it is a comment. You don't even have to make a post. All you have to do is, number one, comment and share. So you're going to comment on this post and you're going to share this post. And then what I'm going to determine the winner by is I want you to give me your top 3 moments. Just top 3. I did a whole top 10. I want you to give me your top 3. And don't copy my top three. If you copy my top three, you're not going to win. I want somebody who's got a top three moments with the best reasons, right? Give me your top three moments from the AKA Warrior Cup with your best reasons. Drop that down in a comment on this live stream for episode 88 of the podcast and share. If you comment your top three moments and you share the podcast, you'll be eligible to be featured on next week's episode of the Jackson Rudolph podcast. Don't forget to tag me, tag Black Belt Magazine, and then, of course, hashtag JRP Challenge so that I see it. And then, of course, now that I'm ending that segment, we can go ahead and switch over to that title there. But anyway, so once again, hashtag JRP Challenge. You see it right there. This week, all you got to do, comment your top three favorite moments from the AKA Warrior Cup with your reasons why, and I'll be picking a winner based off of that. And make sure that you share this post, share this live stream to be eligible. So, guys, that was an awesome show. A little bit long-winded as these film studies can get, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for the love and support and for tuning in. Again, I know that I say this every week and I feel like a broken record, but we do this for you guys. We do this for the sport karate community. I love talking about sport karate. I love being able to share it with as many people as I can. And by doing this podcast, especially these film study episodes where we're showing people that may have never seen sport karate before, all of the great athletes and all the great things they can do, whether they're traditionalists, whether they are, of course, as Gabrielle's trying to FaceTime me at the end of my stream here, so I got to answer that here in just a second. But whether you're a traditionalist, a CMX competitor, a fighter, sport karate has a home for you. And if you enjoy any of those things, you can be a fan of sport karate. And that's the message we're trying to spread through the podcast. So thank you all so much. I'm getting tongue-tied at the end of the show. Can't say thank you enough for the love and support. Thank you to Black Belt Magazine for hosting and sponsoring the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I'm Jackson Rudolph. This has been episode 88 of the Jackson Rudolph podcast, and I'll see you next time.